program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA. Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry. Welcome to Real Estate Radio, hosted by the real estate therapist, Larry Shakman, a top-producing real estate broker, author, CEO, and founder of TrustedAgentUSA.com, the ultimate real estate matchmaker, connecting you with top-performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts, covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA. Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry.
All right, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us on this Hump Day version, an abbreviated version, 30 minutes of the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. And we're going to get into a bunch of stuff today. We're also going to kind of preview what's coming up on Saturday. Of course, we're going to be joined by Dylan Kramer. Let's bring him on. Dylan.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
How's it going, bud?
It's another day in paradise here at Neighborhood Loan.
Hey, Hey man, I love that office. I really do.
It's fantastic. It's a great place to come to work. And I just commandeered an office today. The podcast studio is being used by some folks who are doing some marketing work, and so I was unable to do that. But I think that we'll hopefully get to share that with people next week.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I just it's all good. I have an interesting real estate transaction story for you later today.
Awesome.
As we talk about this, because I want to get your opinion on how this thing shook down as an unbiased kind of third party. So, we can talk about that whenever, but it's
we'll get to it.
It's deal level. So let's talk about the big picture, and then we can
we'll definitely get to it. You know what? Let's give something away for free right at the start, right?
Nice.
Right. Okay. So listen, guys, if you're watching us on YouTube at Larry Shakman, on LinkedIn at Larry Shakman, or on our group at the Real Estate Radio Show podcast group, all you guys have to do is drop a comment and just with the word book and your email address, and we're going to send you this book for free. There's a lot of great information in there. You could also text the word book and your email address to 630-921-0611, and you're going to get a free book just for taking 30 minutes and talking with us. All right. So, and it's a good book, isn't it, Dylan?
I have read the book cover to cover, and you're missing out if you're not reading it.
Absolutely. So
especially if you're going to be in the market. Look, Larry, I read it and I picked up a couple of things, and I do this every day. So the fact of the matter is that if you're kicking around the idea of buying or selling or investing in real estate, to pick up some of these pointers without having to learn them the hard way, for sure.
Hey, you know what? I wrote the book and I revisit it because I pick things up that, when you've been in the business 24 years, you kind of get into this kind of mode, right? Where you're just doing things.
Sure.
And you can remind yourself of little tidbits and nuances that are important. So there's a lot of things going on. Obviously, come Saturday, we're going to talk a lot about the Sitzer-Burnett settlement, that class action lawsuit that NAR settled for $416 million, paid out over 4 years. And honestly, I think there's going to be some really good things that come from this. And I think there's going to be some challenges that we'll get past and we'll figure out. But I think there's going to be some good things also that come out of
Larry. I think that, what, I know you've got a much more emotional connection to this. But from my seat on the lending side of things, I think that what's going to happen is what I've been telling you all along, which is we're just going to change the paperwork and a few more disclosures, and then everybody's going to move on down the road as normal, except for the lawyers who are going to get paid handsomely.
Yeah. And, the plaintiffs will get like $1.50 each, and the lawyers will walk away with 33% and whatever. Who cares? The bottom line is we have to deal with it.
They're suing the real estate community over 6%, but they're getting 33.
Yeah, plus expenses, but we don't have to talk about that. So, you know, the bottom line is there have been changes in the real estate industry over the years, and we've always got past them and kind of, you know, found our way, and we're going to do the same here. And I think there's going to be, like I said, some good things that come out of this and some challenging things, like with VA buyers, you know, VA buyers that use the VA home loan, that product, they cannot pay agents anything. Am I correct?
Well, you're correct, Larry, but let's not. Here's the thing. Right now, as it's been written, much like everybody else in the real estate community, the VA borrower can do their transaction, and if the agents agree to split the seller's commission 50-50, let's say that's 5% of a $200,000 house, that's $10,000. And if the veteran's agent works with Remax and Remax gets 5 of that 10, that's not against the rules. What's against the rules is, let's say Coldwell Banker or Century 21 or somebody else is the selling agent and they charge an administrative fee of $395 to the buyer. You can't charge that. But the selling commission to the selling agent who represents the veteran is being paid today and will continue to be paid unless the veteran has to pay it directly out of their pocket. So at the end of the day, I just think it gets back to this point where we're going to be discussing cooperation. I think that occasionally there's a paperwork snafu where the buyer's agent is trying to get paid a buyer's agency commission rather than sharing the seller's real estate commission. And at the end of the day, I've seen buyer's agents have to walk away with no money because they're not getting paid if they're going to do what's right by the veteran. But ultimately, I think there's going to be very little change. So you're right. And I've seen some conversations, you know, there's been, again, in the aftermath of the lawsuit, there's a lot of he said, she said, and a lot of people trying to say, well, I'll fix it, right? So there's been some conversation that Congress is going to take this up and change the VA rules. But the Veterans Administration and the regional lending centers have basically said, no, we're not entertaining any rule changes right now. We're going to continue as is, which gets back to my original point, which is if they're not going to change the lending guidelines to allow you to finance in your sales commission as a buyer, well, then it's going to have to come from the seller side. Well, how's it going to come from the seller side?
It's going to come as a concession.
It's going to, well, it may or may not come as a concession. It also, look, there's still dispute, Larry, as to whether or not they're going to just let you disclose more detail and share the seller's commission. You know, and I've been, you know, we run a networking thing for agents here. By the way, you're invited next Wednesday every month. And one of the things that was up in conversation last month was some of the agents were like, look, if you're not offering me a buyer's commission out of your seller's commission, I'm not showing your house. Like, I'll show other houses that will share the commission with me. And at the end of the day, I think there's some real resistance, and it's not just weaker salespeople. It's a real recognition that buyers don't have an extra 1%, 2%, 3% in cash floating around to pay agents. So it's got to come from somewhere. And it's, the world has been fine for 50, 60, 80 years with it baked in the cake on the seller's commission. Everybody knows it's not free to the buyer. It's just not paid in cash by the buyer.
Right. Well, the thing that's going to change is it can't be advertised on the MLS. So sellers sellers and listing agents can no longer say they're paying the buyer's agent 2.5% minus $495 or whatever. Right. What's going to happen now is the seller is going to be able to give the buyer a concession that will help them meet their obligation to the buyer's agent who they signed a contract with. And I do not think that here's what I think is going to happen. I don't think sellers are going to stop offering a split. that's not going to happen because there's going to be a lot of buyers that aren't going to be able to buy their home if they do that.
Yeah.
Two, I think this is going to really cull the herd as far as realtors go. And you know what? I think we have about 1.6 million realtors.
Yeah, it's probably too many.
Yeah, and we got a bunch of realtors, and a lot of them are part-time. And I think it's going to, the cream is going to rise to the top, and I think that's going to happen. But I don't think that buyer's agency is going to go away. I don't think sellers are going to stop sharing. They're just going to do it differently, and it's going to be done and negotiated off the MLS.
The one thing I will bring up, Larry, that we haven't talked about this before, and I apologize if I'm stepping on you here, but the thing that I think that is going to be interesting is, will this make FHA loans more attractive to some transactions? And here's how. The conventional loan allows for a 3% concession, right? And so you can eat 3% between in the Chicago market between the title charges and the property tax prorations pretty easily, right? I mean, you can be into 3% real quick. So if you have to give 2% and to the buying agent as the buyer, and that's going to come from, quote, your share, but it's going to come from a concession, you get capped out on a 3% conventional concession. The ability to go to 6% concessions on FHA becomes far more attractive, even with some of the other less attractive qualities about the FHA loan.
Yeah, and if you're putting 20% down, you're not going to have that extra charge anyway with the right?
Well, no, in an FHA loan, even if you can put a half down, you're still going to pay upfront mortgage insurance and a monthly mortgage insurance premium. So
you're still going to have the even if you put 20% down, you'll still have that.
FHA has that monthly expense.
Yeah,
remember,
so that's
the FHA insures loans, much like the VA. They don't actually make them, and so to avail yourself of the guidelines and the more flexible things that FHA allows, you want to turn around and or you're required to pay, in essence, an enrollment fee, which is the FHA upfront MIP, and a monthly service fee to the fund that allows more loans to be made after you, and that is that monthly insurance premium. So it's not PMI in the same sense. It's a mortgage insurance.
That's what I was thinking. There won't be PMI, but there'll be that extra little fee.
Yeah. But you're going to pay that. You're still going to have the extra expense, but at the end of the day, if that's the only way to fund the deal, one of the things one of my mentors said, you can sell a lot of real estate if you understand how financing works, because, in this market, the reality is that, there are a lot of solutions in the marketplace, whether it's now this more attractiveness of FHA loans. I talk about VA loans all the time, and the opportunities for good financing that are available through the Veterans Administration loan program, but also, DSCR loans, which we've discussed at length, are an alternative solution. And understanding financing is the way to move transactions in the current market.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, people just have to take a step back. Don't get all freaked out over this, because we're going to figure it out. And I think where it's really going to be challenging is for first-time home buyers, VA buyers, and potentially FHA buyers. That's because you only have a certain amount of money that you can get back in the form of concessions.
You know what? I disagree. Let's make this point. FHA buyers, if you can get you can go up to 6%.
Well, 6%. Yeah, FHA is fine. Yeah,
that's going to make it more attractive. Remember, VA concessions are 4%. So conventional concessions are the lowest, and that may make an individual transaction, that may make it less attractive for a buyer. But now you got to do the math, and that's always where we come in. As, hey, if I have 20% down, should I avail myself of an FHA loan, even though I got to pay this much monthly, because I can get this other 4%? Like if I've got 20% down and not much else, is it worth putting 20% down, or is it worth putting 15% down conventional, paying the monthly PMI, versus FHA, where I can get the money for the concession instead of paying it in cash? And that analysis as to, what that looks like for a buyer. If you're buying again a $200,000 house and you've got $40,000 and not a penny more, you've got a down payment, but you don't have closing costs, and you might need a concession. Well, it might be better to put 15% down and find yourself in a situation where you use the concessions to pay your agent, pay a monthly PMI that you can get rid of, versus an FHA loan at 20% down where you use 4% concessions. It's a math problem, and every situation will be a little different depending on credit score, depending on the type of property that you buy, etc. That's why you need a true, like we talk about this all the time. It's very cliche, but you need to have a mortgage lender that understands how to put the deal together, and they have to have a good relationship with the real estate professional so that we can talk through this and not be adversarial about trying to structure a contract that is explainable to the seller side, but makes sense for the buyer.
I think at the end of the day, I don't think a lot is going to change, because I think sellers are still going to offer that buyer agency commission, but just in the form of a concession.
You're absolutely right.
I just don't think a lot's going to change. And I think, I'm not gonna, lie about this. I think NAR has really, not been great stewards of whatever they're stewards of, because
I don't disagree. I think you're 100% right. I think that's, unfortunately, the horse has left the barn on that. And now now the question is, how's what's the fallout going to look like? And I just, one of the things, Larry, and I keep saying what I've said for months and months and months, because it's human nature. And what do I mean by that? People will take the easiest possible solution, given the idea that they're faced with difficult decisions. And at the end of the day, the difficult decision is here: how do we radically change the dollar flow in the transaction? Or do we not radically change it at all? Do we just change the paperwork? We're just going to change the paperwork.
Yeah. And I would have to agree with Kevin Sears on some level. There was really no perfect answer to this. I just, at the end of the day, I don't think NAR's attorneys made the case. So they settled for $416 million. And I guarantee you our dues are going up. We'll see if they lower their salaries at leadership to make this more palatable. I doubt it. But,
they're going to increase their salaries. And you know what it's going to be, Larry? We've been stewards for years and years. And in these tough times, we have to turn around and make sure we compensate our leadership for the challenging times that they're guiding us through. You know that rap.
I will tell you this right now: all hell will break loose if they get a raise.
Well,
I get, and if our dues go up and all of their salaries go up as well, that's not going to look good. That will not play well.
No, it's a bad look for sure.
Let's get into this.
We're already 20 minutes in. Let's go.
Tell me what you got with this transaction and what's going on.
So I'll give you the thumbnail version of this. So I have a buyer who is in attorney review on the sale of her house. And this is a buyer, I think I told you about this. We talked about this particular buyer on the podcast last week. And she's the one who's moving to a smaller property after owning several houses after her divorce. No investment real estate, but has built $600,000, $700,000 worth of equity in a property. She's looking to roll from her $1.3 million sale to basically an $800,000 condo, and take a small mortgage that is now a couple grand a month versus $5,000 in her existing house payment. So that transaction is falling apart, and here's why. The sellers of the place to her, which is the lower priced condo, and by lower price I mean it's like $800,000, right? In one of the northern suburbs, they turned around and got them under contract, and we're going through attorney review, and she's scheduling the home inspection, and they basically put it as contingent on the MLS. And another agent for a third party, other buyer who was interested in the property, was like, no, don't sell it to them. We'll pay you full price and we'll do it in cash. And instead of installing it as a backup offer, they called my client's attorney and canceled the contract. We're going to take the other deal because they're in attorney review. And now because of that, she doesn't have anywhere to move to, and she's still in attorney review on her house. And she's probably going to turn around and cancel that transaction because she doesn't have a suitable house to move to. All of this because some buyer came in after the contract was in place, although the contract does have language that, as you know, during the initial review, you can turn around and just, hey, I'm going to kill the deal.
If you're still in attorney review, you can pretty much do what you want.
Legally, yes. Right?
Yes, I know where you're going with
this. Is this dirty pool or is it not?
You know what? Well, here's the thing. Was the contract that was, she accepted it. Mm-hmm. Was that also for list price, or was it for less money than the cash offer? No, it was for less money.
It was for less money.
How much? Well, do you want to tell me how much less?
30 grand on 800.
Yeah, well, that's 30 grand. So on some level, is it kind of, you had a deal, but you're still in attorney review, and you get this other contract that comes along that's 30 grand more, and for cash, that's hard. But what she could have done is gone to the first contract and say, hey, got this contract. I'm going to be honest with you. I want to accept it. It's for more, but if you'll match it, it's yours, and give them the opportunity to match it.
Okay. In this situation, they just killed the transaction, right? Like, no, we're just taking this other offer. I agree with you.
I would not have done that.
Yeah. I feel like that's where she's really getting done dirty. Like, and I think you could feel better in life if you give somebody the opportunity to opt out. Like, no, I'm not going to pay that price. But to just turn around and kill it and be like, sorry, you thought you were buying this house and you're not.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. In that situation, I would have gone back to contract number one and said, look, we got this other cash offer in. It's 30 grand more than yours. We're going to accept it unless you want to match it. If you match it, you're the buyer, but I can't walk away from 30 grand.
Right.
So that's what I would have done. I have a similar situation like that. This property, this condo we put on the market for right around 300,000. Somebody put an offer on it, sight unseen. I'm meeting them there tomorrow. Sight unseen for 10 grand over list. And I have a bunch of other people saying, hey, we're interested in it. I've got, my buyer is absolutely interested in it. Can we see it too? And I said, well, the seller has accepted this offer pending the buyer seeing it and making sure it works for them, which I'm pretty sure it will. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to show it to you, but we have a list plus offer on the table.
Right.
So I think in the spirit of the transaction that you're discussing, I would 100% have given buyer number one the chance to match it. And then if they don't, move on.
So not as dirty as I might, or my buyer might feel about it, but definitely not clean either.
Not clean, but you know what? Listen, it's not always clean. But if someone comes in 30 grand over, I mean, your job as a listing agent.
If I'm the one selling the house, like, I want the 30 grand. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens sometimes. But I think you should give buyer number one the opportunity to at least match it. And if they can't, say, hey, listen, I feel horrible about this, but my seller is going to take this offer. And actually, as a listing agent, my fiduciary responsibility is to get that seller as much money as possible at the best terms possible, similar to a buyer's agent.
So riddle me this, Larry. Are you a hockey guy? Because you just said fiduciary, much like people say organization in hockey.
That's funny. Yeah. I am a hockey guy. That's not why I said that, though.
It was just funny. It struck my ear. All right. Well, I appreciate your insight on that. We got 5 minutes left. What else do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, coming this Saturday, we're going to really dive deep into Sitzer Burnett, and we're going to look at some of the finer points and why I don't really think this is going to be a huge deal. I think there's going to be some changes. I think, like I said earlier, it's going to cull the herd in terms of the 1.6 million or whatever we have realtors out there. I think Naperville has 150,000 people living in it, and I think 118,000 of them are realtors. So I think it'll probably, including me, but I've been doing it for 24 years. So, but yeah, I think that's the big thing that's going to happen. I think it's going to really cull the herd. And
I agree. Yeah, so we'll have some mortgage rate information. We got the ADP report today. The ADP report has left the market kind of flat. So I don't think there's a lot to discuss here, but we're going to get the jobs report on Friday. So that may give us some grist for the mill in terms of rates and conversation. The last couple of months we've really had problems in terms of the ability to trust the number that they reveal at 7:30 on Friday morning. And I'll be interested to see if there are big revisions to last month's number, which seemed horrific.
They're always revising.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, I think that the last two administrations in particular have been very willing to turn around and accept the numbers on the front end from the Bureau of Labor Statistics because it gives them good headlines. And, they get up there and they send speakers out to the news cameras and they're like, oh, look at us growing jobs. And they take all the credit. And then the next month they revise it down. They're like, never mind that. Look what happened this month. And so I think that that's going to be an interesting shakeout.
You know what, Dylan? I will say one thing. The job market has been very resilient. It really has. And it'll be interesting to see what these numbers shake out, how they shake out.
I don't think it's been as healthy as the unemployment figures portray it to be, but it is not unhealthy. I think you're right. I think that both anecdotally and just out in the general public, people are working and people are getting paid. And one of the things that is a challenge for us on an inflation front is people are making more money than ever and jobs are getting really good raises. And ultimately, that's inflationary. And I think that that's a thing that we have to reckon with is our higher wages, as well as higher insurance costs and higher benefit costs, as well as some things like higher gas prices and some other stuff, getting run into the inflation expectations for the long run in a way that is, again, going to continue to keep rates higher for longer, which I continue to, if you had to bet me today, I would bet we are not getting a rate drop from the Fed in 2024 at all. That's just my opinion.
Oh, really? We'll see.
No, look, I think after reading through the Fed minutes and some of the Powell discussions from last week, you find yourself in a situation where he says, well, we're open to 3 rate cuts later this year, but we're data dependent. Well, data can be manipulated
as always,
1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the Fed needs to not get behind on inflation. I mean, you've seen some stuff. Tax receipts. We spent $2 trillion as a government last month, and we had $1 trillion in tax receipts. Like, that's an astronomical amount of money. But think about it on your credit card. If you made 10 grand last month, you brought home 10 grand, but you spent 20 on your credit card, how many months can you do that?
Yeah,
Answer,
not good.
Eventually not long. So I think that reality is going to come home to roost. And what you need is to maintain the perception that you have inflation under control, because even if the Fed cuts their rate, and you've heard me say this, if they're perceived to be out of control on inflation, the market will move rates higher on the long end of things. And just like home buyers, the Fed has to go out into the marketplace and finance the debt.
I don't see interest rates on 30-year fixed mortgages probably not going below 7% this year, or staying right around 7%.
yeah, I think we might get a week or two or a month here or there where you get a kick down to 6.8, 6.75. If you get that, I would take that and run.
Yeah,
But I think that
absolutely.
generally the base rate being at 7% is probably solid.
All right. How do people get in touch with you if they want to talk VA loans, FHA loans, finance?
Anything mortgage related in terms of qualifying, pre-approval, financing, should I refinance? What are my options? How do I consolidate my debt? Anything along those lines, text me at 630-708-7088.
All right, Dylan, we will see you on Saturday at 9 a.m. and we got a lot to talk about.
Thanks, buddy. Looking forward to it.
Okay, man.
Talk to you then.
Talk to you soon. Yeah. All right, everybody. That's a wrap on the Hump Day version of the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. Be sure to tune in on Saturday at 9 a.m. We're going to really drill down on the Sitzer-Burnett class action settlement. And like I said, I don't think it's going to disrupt the real estate market as much as some people think. I don't think buyer agency is going away. And I don't think sellers are going to stop sharing that total commission, because they'll cut a lot of buyers out of the deal if they do, and they'll find it harder to sell their home, frankly. So you guys have an awesome day. And before I go, I want to remind everybody that if you'd like this free book, 630-921-0611, just text the word book and your email address, and we're going to send you a free copy of the top 10s of real estate, which is 32 proven top 10 real estate lists that are going to help you maximize your profit, whether you're selling, buying, or investing. So with that, you guys have an awesome day, and we will see you on Saturday.
Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience.